Our third speaker this evening is a young woman who is a high school student. And she was one of 6 people that went from either Hunter High School or Hunter College. I think particularly with the work of Helen Schiff here, who made a Herculean effort to enlist students to go on this trip, because we wanted to build a new generation of people who would be active and involved and working on this as the rest of us fade into the sunset. So Jenna Bitar is, she'll speak on the political lessons that she learned on the Free Gaza March. And Jenna is distinguished by the fact that she is the only high school student that Amnesty International accepted into its internship program. So without further ado, let's welcome Jenna Bitar.
Hi, I am 18 years old, which is a pretty big deal going on this Gaza Freedom March, because as far as I know, I was the only high school student. I was the only high school student there. I went with my mom and my brother, and my brother is currently in the West Bank right now. Sorry. Is that better? I happen to be half Palestinian. I kind of think of that as more of a coincidence. Okay. Because I wish I could say that's how I got involved in this movement, and it's not at all. It was after the assault on Gaza last year that my family and I actually became politically aware, and once you become knowledgeable, in my opinion, it's almost impossible not to be active. So we've really taken an active position, and as soon as the Gaza Freedom March came about, we were going. And I would like to say that I think I really entered this time and this movement at a point where there's been an enormous public shift in opinion, particularly after what happened in Gaza. I noticed that, with the conception of the Goldstone Report and the BDS movement, and then the Gaza Freedom March, and then the Cairo Declaration, we're really taking steps forward and creating a movement that I don't believe was there before. So just to start off with that feeling, I wanted to share some experiences being on the march. I'm a new activist and a young student, so one of the most powerful outcomes, I think, for all or most of the students there was just learning the ins and outs of activism, and that's really what we were able to do and what we were able to experience. I was active in organizing the Gaza Freedom March early on. I was doing some work with my brother goes to Hunter College with the Hunter College Campus Anti-War Network, and as Abdi mentioned, we were able to send many of the students on the trip with us. But in the months right before the Gaza Freedom March, I had a lot of college applications due, and logistically, I kind of said to my mom, "You're gonna have to handle all of the details." I would listen to the phone calls, kind of while writing some papers, and had really one mindset going over there, which was Gaza. I left my house I was doing my final applications, and getting to Cairo, arriving in Cairo was not only a culture shock, but it wasn't something I had really thought about. I hadn't really thought about being in Cairo at all, actually. So we landed in Cairo, and we had known that the Egyptian government had said officially for the first time, as opposed to the last delegations that went to Gaza, they made an announcement that the Gaza Freedom March is not getting into Gaza. But in my mind, this meant that we were going to drive to the border, and they were going to say no, and we were going to protest outside of the border, and put enough pressure on them. 1,400 of us was going to put enough pressure on them to let us in. I really naively hadn't thought about getting stuck in Cairo. At that point, I made the realization that we had a political goal. We weren't there. We wanted to be with the Gazan people, and we wanted to stand with them. But we were really there for political reasons, and that was to bring attention to the siege on Gaza. And being in Cairo, what we had was our power in numbers, and not just a representation of one country, but I think it was 43 different countries that we represented. We were all in one location, so our job then was to, make some noise. So my mom and I arrived a few days early, and that's what I was really glad about. We were going to do some sightseeing, but we ended up getting to be part. They had told us, I don't know if you know, but they had told us that it was illegal to meet in groups larger than 6. So we were in these illegal, what felt like underground meetings where we would meet and brainstorm with some activists that have been doing this for so long and have been involved in so much, other huge movements that you got to share ideas and hear about their experiences. And I remember we would have conversations like we would discuss who felt comfortable or who was okay with getting deported and arrested and deported. And I remember one woman was saying, it's really not a big deal to get deported. They usually let you in after a little while anyway. And this was it helped a lot with the courage going into this. We were going to be demonstrating, and it was going to be scary, which it was. But there was a lot of preparation and talking, and that just helped a lot in terms of being young and being there. Just in terms of, I wanted to speak on the topic of students, to say that being part of the younger generation, it wasn't the student delegation as much that was really powerful. It was the fact that we were able to see clearly how a movement works and be part of it. So, as I mentioned with learning experiences, I wanted to share a few examples of where I got to personally push the limits of the Egyptian government. I don't know if that's something to be proud of. I think it is. First of all, something I learned was the Egyptian police were really easy to convince of things. It was a combination of, I think, the language barrier, and it was a combination of being international. I had this immunity, but I really thought this was a powerful experience. I was with my good friend Manije Saba, and she was doing the hunger strike. It was a few days into the hunger strike. There were 30 activists on the hunger strike, and they were going to do a press release in front of the journalist syndicate, and her and I left early from the hotel, and we were walking over, and we get there, and the police are dispersing everyone. People had met kind of there before. Police are dispersing everybody. And she grabbed my arm and just pushed through all the police, and she said, "Listen, Jenna, we're taking this space." So we sat down on the stairs, and I was terrified because the police are really intimidating. We sat down on the stairs, and she said, "Don't move." And so they're coming over to us, and they're yelling at us and screaming at us. And she just looks past them, and she's saying, "Everybody come sit down, come sit down." Soon enough, we have this whole group of people sitting there, and the cops just completely backed off. And she, nudged me and said, "This is how you do it. You want the space, you take it." So, I think that was where I got my courage to do what I wanted with the Egyptian police. Another example that I thought was kind of funny, actually. I don't know if you know about the French delegation, but one of the French delegations, I believe, that there was, I think, 300 of them had camped outside of the French embassy for 5 days. And we would regularly go and visit them and kind of, show our solidarity and just say hi. And we went one time early on, it was a second day, I think. My brother and I and our friend, and a small group of us actually, we showed up, and the French embassy always had about 3 layers of riot cops between you and the French people. So we got there, and they're like screaming at us, saying, no, no, you can't come in, you can't come in. And if you can come in, you're not getting out. Like, there's no way you're getting out. You can't be here, just leave. So after I don't really know how, we were walking back and forth, avoiding them. Someone was able to convince them that we could go in for 10 minutes. That was it. We had 10 minutes to go in, and we could come out. They kind of looked at who went in. So we go in, my friend made a speech, we had some great times with the French, and then we left. But what I noticed was, later on I learned that they were letting people in and out, but that day there was a huge group of French, I think they were French, or they were just staying with the French, at the point where you can enter or exit, and there's a huge group of them, they wanted to get out, and the police was being very aggressive and was not letting them out. So I kind of got my way out when the 10 minutes was over, and I'm standing there. My brother and his friend were in the back, they were in the back of this huge group. So I got a little concerned, and I realized who was in charge. I went over to him and stood next to him, and I said, that's my brother over there, you remember him, let him out. So he gives the orders in Arabic to let my brother out, and they're coming out. And then I realized, I have this power now, so I kind of nudging him, and I go down the list. I go, and the one with the glasses, and the one with the jacket, and I'm describing every person that's waiting to get out, and he's sending the orders and letting them all out, and soon enough, everybody's out. And it was really funny. It was actually really funny. It was great. And the last experience, another really funny experience that I just wanted to share was when we did the actual Gaza Freedom March, which is our symbolic or not symbolic march to Gaza. They had taken all of our permits, our buses, and we were going to walk to Gaza, and we were going to take over the streets. Our plan was a flash mob demonstration, which we really didn't know. We didn't really know what it was. We didn't know what to expect. We were scared, but we got a text message. My mom got a text message 2 hours before we were planning on leaving, saying they're blockading the hotels. Get out now. We had been up to about 2 a.m. with the art crew, making signs, and we had about 300 signs. These signs were in our room. We didn't know what to do with them, so we put them in a suitcase. My brother has them in the suitcase, and my mom and I are leaving. We just left. And sure enough, they put up barricades. We were in the Lotus Hotel, which is the kind of hub for everybody. They had barricaded us in, and they had lines of riot cops out. So while standing there, we see one of our fellow American delegates getting pushed up against the wall. He had taken a picture, and they deleted all the pictures on his camera. They were being kind of aggressive with him. He looked Egyptian. And so we're seeing this all happen, and we're terrified. And my brother has a suitcase with all of the signs. And we're standing there, and he's freaking out. He's saying, I have to go bring them back up. I'm too scared. This is bad. If they see them, we're going to get in trouble. So I said, no, Joel, just follow my lead. So I go up to one of them and really tried to be an obnoxious, we were supposed to look like tourists. So tried to be a really obnoxious tourist that had no idea what was going on, why they were there. So I'm screaming at them going, does anyone speak English? Can somebody talk to me? So somebody comes over and I'm like, listen, my brother has to get to the airport. He has a flight in 3 hours. We have to be there immediately. You need to let us out. So he's like, well, where's your ticket? And I thought he caught me, but I was about to admit defeat. And my brother was like, no, don't you know? You get the ticket at the airport. So we're telling him this whole story. And meanwhile, they're setting up a protest in the barricades. There was a Code Pink woman taking out signs. So we thought we were going to get stuck in there. But sure enough, I just keep bothering him about it. And eventually he goes, okay, come on, get out. And then my mom was stuck in there. I'm like, no, her too. So we all got ourselves out, and we were able to demonstrate, and it was one of the scariest demonstrations I was part of, and it was emotional. We took over the streets. We did a little bit of marching, and they got pretty aggressive. I was in a section that was actually more violent, I think. It seemed that way. Some people didn't have as much of tensions, but I was there with a lot of people. And this is just a note on the solidarity of the marchers themselves, from all these people sharing one passion, just what it looked like. We were all linked arms, and we were standing together as with a bunch of women, and they were just dragging people out. They're trying to get us onto the sidewalk because we were on the street. and they were just dragging everyone and pulling everyone and hitting everyone. And I kind of made my way. I tried to avoid the beating as much as possible, but I was able, I was seeing they were just pulling women's hair and they were just hitting everyone, kicking this woman on the ground. And I got up on the sidewalk and I just started sobbing because it was awful. And then I remember a man, I'd never spoken to him before or after that. I think he was from the Italian delegation. He just took me and held me. And it was that type of unity that was something I would never expect to experience as a high schooler. And it was beautiful, and it, empowered me. I feel great to be here and enthusiastic about being part of what I think is really a movement on the rise. Just that we were all there together with one passion, and that was to free Gaza. So, thank you.